Superstar. Tight end. Whisper.
The tight end whisper.
I don't even know where they got that from. Oh, yeah.
I told him. It's like, what should you talk about? It's like, oh, let me list.
Yeah.
Top of the list is, no, I'm just playing it. I didn't say that.
All right, guys, y'all ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning, so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a fuck about your feelings, rub it in. This your ointment can't depend on the oinker. Find your
Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with the two-time FFPC champion, AB. I'm also here with our dynasty guru, Dayo the Machine. Guys, I want to go through the news real quick. Not much news to come out this week, but I do want to talk about the Claypool injury. It seems like he'll be okay, but is it still relevant or irrelevant?
Mostly irrelevant. For me, I think when we hear about how fragile RBs are, but then we constantly see wide receivers going down with injury, I think it's more relevant from that standpoint of that anyone can get injured or be exposed to injury. So maybe running backs a little bit more often, but if you have a wide receiver that gets injured, that's your wide receiver. So
Yeah.
depth is important, really relevant just from a drafting standpoint, or overall concept standpoint.
Yeah. Overall, irrelevant because they already said it's not that big of a deal. He'll be back soon, and we're 3 weeks away from the season. So overall, it's irrelevant. But theoretically, for fantasy, especially FFPC, when that happens, you think everybody thinks, oh no, they probably get scared off of Claypool. So that small gap of injury and prognosis is when there's a dip. So if you're interested in Claypool, you can buy the dip.
By the dip.
Yeah, buy the dip. So.
All right. Jamal Adams finally gets his new contract, 4 years, $72 million extension.
Yep.
Relevant or irrelevant?
Irrelevant. I mean, let's just hope they got enough money to pay Dwayne Brown.
Right.
Protect Russ's blind
They
side.
paid that man. They gave that man the highest contract out of any safety in the NFL. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Crazy.
This is a fantasy football show, not an NFL show.
Yeah,
all right.
it's crazy.
They like him for their system.
Now
that.
it's relevant in the fact that it does help the Seahawks defense because he does make them a different defense when he's out on the field.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are really targeting the Seahawks defense, but if you are, that helps out.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about Tebow mania. It looks like it's over. Tebow gets waived by the Jags. Relevant or irrelevant?
Waste of time, man.
Irrelevant, but nice to know that he's not going to be on the team to potentially vulture any goal line touchdowns. Although I thought that was pretty far fetched. Still, you never know.
Right.
Oh, fair enough.
Pass, man. Come on.
Yeah, next.
keep it moving.
We got a long show.
Don't got no time to talk about Tebow, man.
All right, guys. I read a report that during the joint practice with Philly and New England, that Jalen Hurts actually outshined Cam during that practice. Is that relevant or irrelevant?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm ignoring the camp reports. What I do take from that is that Jalen Hurts seems to be improving from a practice standpoint. And so when we started off first with a lot of negative news, particularly with the entire Philadelphia Eagles team in general, we're starting to see some positive news come out of that team and coming out of camp. And from what I saw from the preseason, to me, it's promising because we have been seeing quite the dip in Jalen Hurts' ADP over the past few recent weeks, whether it's been the Watson news or the initial bad news coming out of camp. But I think it's a positive from his standpoint. As far as Cam goes, to me, it's mostly irrelevant. It's hard to really pull any objective information that's going to change or sway my opinion when it comes to that Patriots quarterback competition.
Yeah. And y'all know how I feel about beat writers. I mean, one beat writer would say one thing, another beat writer would say something totally opposite. So I just kind of try to just ignore it and just kind of pay attention to the facts. Now, I will say, if there is any merit to what that report was, because I didn't even see that report, that's relevant to me because for me, I do believe Mac Jones is going to get that job soon. You know, how soon, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's week 1. You know, they do say they're in a quarterback battle, and he looked pretty good in the preseason. I mean, it was against the backups, but he looked poised. He looked like he was, I don't want to say a veteran, but he didn't look like a rookie. So I guess you can say he looked like a veteran. So, and y'all know I like Damien Harris. So if Mac Jones does get that job, that's wheels up for Damien Harris. So relevant in that standpoint, I got Jalen Hurts in a few of my teams now with this dip. So that's kind of cool. Still a little bit nervous about it, but you know, if he's doing better, then I mean, there's nothing but help out a little bit.
Yeah, it's just funny how quickly these ADPs have shifted in just a matter of a few weeks. You know, initially we were, screaming the praises and trying to beg people to take Trey Lance.
Right.
And now I've just completely reversed course because his ADP has gotten to a point where it's just not palatable to take him where he's going.
Yeah.
So now, you're getting guys like, Jalen Hurts, who is a known starter,
Right.
who's going around the same area. I'm definitely going to go Jalen Hurts over him because, again, Jalen Hurts has that Konami code upside too.
Right.
I mean, if anything, you're looking at, potentially Lamar Jackson from 2019.
Yeah.
Remember how Lamar Jackson looked his rookie year when he started the back half of the season. Very similar trajectory as far as starting off your career wise, but obviously it's a different offense. I'm not saying that he's Lamar Jackson, but you definitely have that high rushing upside, and that's really all I care about.
Right. I still like Trey Lance over Hurts, but when we were getting Lance, Hurts was going like 2-3 rounds before Lance. Now they're going in the same place, so if it's a toss up, I mean, I'll take either or. Still would prefer Lance, but Hurts is not a bad consolation prize at all.
If I knew Lance was starting, I would take Lance.
Yeah.
Actually, I would just take whoever was left over.
Right.
But we don't know Lance is starting.
Yeah.
We don't even know if he's going to start. And we talked about it on this podcast. When we talk about how excited we are about Trey Lance, I draft him with the understanding of knowing that there's a chance that he may not play at all this year. So I'm never just taking him and solely relying on the fact that he may lead my team to the promised land.
That's why if you take him though, you have to make sure you do pick up some other quarterback.
Yeah,
I find myself taking another one of those late, not late tier, but mid tier quarterbacks.
Exactly.
After the Hurts.
And I want a mid tier. I don't want to wait on one of these later guys.
Right.
I know Sam Darnold has an easy schedule to start.
Man, don't draft Sam Darnold.
I know.
Man.
We talked about Fitzpatrick, but I really don't want any of those guys. I don't want to rely, especially in high stakes, on guys like Fitzpatrick in my lineup on a week-to-week basis.
Right.
All right, guys, I want to do the injury report for this week. Dayo, can you give us our rundown on injuries and what has happened so far?
So I didn't gather all of them. So these are just a few I just kind of corralled. So Julio, he's been missing practice. He missed practice today. I don't even know what his injury is. Just know he missed practice. Naheem Hines, same thing. He missed practice for whatever injury, so he's out. Justin Fields actually hurt his groin. I don't know if that happened in the game or in practice, but he didn't practice today. Hollywood is still out. We didn't bring him up last week, but DeAndre Swift has had a groin injury. I do think they said he's going to try to come back to practice this week, but I haven't heard anything yet. Chase Claypool, he had an ankle injury that we can speak on later. Amari still dealing with that ankle. Like they were hoping
he may play in the preseason.
They're saying he may play, but also they're saying they're not quite sure yet. Roby Anderson, he just had a hamstring injury recently. So Robbie, okay, my bad, Robbie.
By the way, Anderson. I think I figured it out. It is Darrell, not Daryl. But keep going.
How do you know it's Darrell?
I've been doing some research on it. I just can't give it a
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. Devin Funchess, who actually has been looking good with the Packers, hamstring injury. So he's been out. And then A.J. Dillon. Remember last week I talked about Kylan Hill, that he was an injury away again because Aaron Jones was dealing with an injury. I think Aaron Jones actually came back to practice now. But A.J. Dillon didn't practice. Kylan Hill got first-team reps today. So yeah, and I'm sure there's other injuries, but those are the ones that just kind of caught my eye.
Now, there are a few people who have kind of fallen off our radar lately. Specifically, I want to talk about James Conner because we talked about him last week.
Oh, yeah.
I got a chance to talk to Dr. Reyes about James Conner.
Really?
So let's see his diagnosis and his opinion on the James Conner injury.
Okay.
James Conner actually had a recreational vehicle accident back in April 2021, in which he then therefore had surgery. The reports show that there's actually called a turf toe type injury, and so we expect that to be more of what we call a hyperextension of the toe. And so whatever toe that was hyperextended, it does not say specifically what toe. Basically, the toe goes into hyperextension, possibly tearing some ligaments or fracturing some of the bones. To have it surgically repaired, that means that something was repaired, or at least either minimally invasive to just debride it, so they're going to remove some tissue, or they need to surgically repair. Most reports show that he is now off the PUP list after returning off the COVID-19, and then also being delayed in his practice return due to the toe. And so we're looking to see that after a toe surgery, you're looking at a 8 to 12 month recovery period with ramped up strength conditioning and then agility after that. And so it's no surprise that there's a delayed return for him to practice, but we're looking to see that he returns in maybe one of the preseason games, but definitely ready for week 1 return.
Now, we also talked about Joe Burrow. Didn't look great. I think, AB, you said that you expected him not to look great because of the type of injury that he had. Dr. Reyes also talked about Joe Burrow as well.
He actually said he was getting through a mental thing with that today too. So
Man,
he might
come
be
on
improving.
now.
He might be improving. But
Let's hear what the doc has to say.
yeah,
All right, let's watch it.
Joe Burrow sustained an ACL MCL tear in November 2020. He went on to have surgery that same month in November, and then to repair his ACL as an MCL. So 12 months removed from there would then put him back into November of 2021. 9 months removed from there, especially from an ACL MCL repair, puts him around August 2021. So it's no surprise that they're making a big push for him to return week 1. Most reports and then the video analysis from practices show that he is moving out of the pocket. He's making, throws with that left leg being planted into the ground itself, and then moving into a specific direction. And so we're going to want to see that he continues to do that and also passes more criteria during practice to ensure that he is still making full recovery, because full recovery from then would be from 12 months from there. And so he's going to be pushing for a week 1 return date. Most reports show that he is also trying to push for that week 1 return date. You're going to be looking at preseason. They ramp up some more activity during practice. We may see him in preseason 3, but looking to see that he gets into that week 1 return date from that ACL MCL repair.
All right, so the last person that I got a chance to talk to Dr. Reyes about is OBJ. We haven't heard
Odell,
Odell,
my
right.
boy.
All right, Odell.
Is he concerned about Odell?
Listen,
I'm glad you had a chance to talk to him, because although I want to believe that he's going to return, I think we're all thinking that he's going to return to that New York Giants Odell. We really haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah.
But it's not like his injury occurred like last offseason. It
Yeah.
occurred in season, a few games in season. And we're just, we've seen the videos of him like running super fast on the treadmill. He didn't end up on the PUP to start, but he really hasn't participated in practice.
I like Odell, man.
And I think what's baked into his current ADP is the fact that he's in a primarily a run volume offense. Baker's his quarterback, good but not great. And then he's coming off an injury. But I don't think what is baked in is the potential that he may not be 100% when he comes back. Again, this may be a situation where we're just assuming that knee's going to be 100%. We're assuming that it's not going to be eased in. Everyone's worried about Saquon as far as him being eased in, but we're not. No one has the same concern, or no one said anything about Odell just yet. So I'm interested. You didn't like that? You didn't like hearing that?
Not at all.
Sometimes the truth hurts.
Let's see what Dr. Reyes has to say about it.
Some of you may be wondering when Odell Beckham Jr. will return to full practice and play after sustaining an ACL tear. Well, he sustained his ACL tear on November 10, 2020, actually in September, and then had surgery on November 10th. And so then therefore his earliest return to play would be 9 months from there. That would make it about August 2021. They're going to want to see that he passes all criteria past the 9 months through the rehabilitation program itself, and then through the strength condition, and then through practice drills. And so you'll see that most reports that he is actually moving through practice right now and doing most practice drills but no contact. And so we're going to be looking that he's going to actually ramp that up over the next coming weeks in preseason, and then looking for a return on week 1. He is actually moving forward without the PUP list, and so they're going to be looking to ramp him up for that week 1 return date. That would put him around 10 months away from surgery. So it's right around that timeline in which we see these individuals return from ACL tears. Then we want to see, month 11, month 12 to full recovery by then, and now they're full into their season. So you're going to be looking at a limited role when he does first start. However, that is going to be ramped up barring any setbacks for him. So look for a week 1 return date for him.
So let's talk about lineups, and it seems like the casual fantasy football drafter is starting to jump into some of these drafts. I know I drafted a couple teams over this last week.
Nice.
And I see fewer badges actually in my draft.
Really?
Let's actually address them for a second. For the casual drafter, what exactly are you looking for when you look at fantasy value? Like, how do you determine fantasy value when you're setting up to get prepared for a draft?
Well, I mean, the first thing, for a casual drafter is you really, really have to understand the format that you're in, especially if you're just now jumping into the game, because likely you're pulling from a variety of different resources, and it's really hard to put certain articles in context. You probably have come across, zero RB strategy. And that may be viable in certain formats where you're starting 3 wide receivers in a flex, but in a format like the FFPC, or formats where you only have to start 2 wide receivers, you don't necessarily have to go that route. And to me, that may be less viable. Half point PPR versus PPR, standard, or non-PPR versus PPR. Those are all very, very important. But really understanding, what you need from a starting lineup, that is extremely key. So that's usually the first thing that I think people who are just now starting to draft need to tackle first. And then the next thing is understanding what the current ADP looks like, what the current landscape looks like, because it's easy to get through the first, second, and maybe third rounds. But once you start to get into the middle rounds, and especially the later rounds, that's when you start to kind of get lost. And especially if you're just doing drafts for the first time, you start to get flustered a bit. So you really want to look at what do ADPs look like? What can I anticipate there being for me in the 5th round? And once you have a good sense of that, then you can start drafting it based off of what you believe. So if you believe 0 RB is viable, and you're thinking I'm going to draft 4 wide receivers, and you need to have a good understanding of which RBs are going to be there for you in that mid to later rounds. And if you're not comfortable with those running backs, or you don't feel like your team is a team that can take down a tournament, then you need to adjust your strategy a bit. So understanding the draft format, having a good sense of what ADPs currently look like, that's really what you should focus on before you start drafting.
Dayo, let's stay on the same topic, but let's address it from a different point of view. Like, how do you contrast talent versus being in a good situation? A player you are high on has a lot of talent. Let's say like a Jonnu being there with Hunter Henry, but those are two stud tight ends versus a tight end that may not have a battle but is in a better situation. Like, how do you determine who has the better fantasy value when it comes to choosing a tight end in a situation like that?
A tight end or just any player?
Just any position, but just for instance, like that situation, whereas both of those receivers are highly talented. But I kind of faith them a little bit because let's be honest, like there are two stud tight ends who could take carries away from each other.
Right. I mean, ideally, when in fantasy, you want to find the players that kind of meet at the intersection of both talent and situation. Those are the best players, obviously. The players where you know they're probably going to get most of the touches. They're going to get they're going to be involved in the offense. Probably one of the major playmakers for their team. You know, and then also they're the ones that they can take it to the house any moment. You know, they can catch over anybody that defended them. You know, you want players like that. Now, when it gets to the point later in the draft, you know, it starts to kind of split. You kind of have like a fork in the road, kind of like what you're speaking of. You start going down the path of players that have talent, but probably not in the best situation, or players that are in a fairly okay situation, but the talent's not there. For example, you look at somebody like, what was I going to say? The guy that they were talking about this week, Malcolm Brown. Mm-hmm. Okay, Malcolm Brown, talent-wise, is not what you would probably look for.
Jag.
But
below Jag.
All of a sudden this week, everybody saw that he was getting those first-team reps at running back. Mm-hmm. His value is now increased. People are not increasing his value because they think he's good. They're increasing his value because the situation improved from where they saw was before, you know? Mm-hmm. And then you look at another situation where, kind of like what you're saying, Jonnu has the talent, but he's splitting work with another tight end. We don't even know if he's splitting. They might both be out there at the same time. But when you think of just the position of tight end, he is having somebody else there that you can maybe say is even more talented than him. He was a higher draft pick. Other than last year, he was always looked at higher than Jonnu. So it definitely depends. I'm the guy that likes opportunity over talent. Now, they do say talent always, you know, the cream rises to the top. But like I always preach, you know, no matter what we think about talent-wise as far as these players, all that matters is what the coach thinks.
Right.
Like, everybody thinks Myles Gaskin is far more superior than Malcolm Brown. Mm-hmm. But the Dolphin coaches, for whatever reason, are wanting to utilize Malcolm Brown. You know, so regardless of what we think, you know, we have to kind of see how it is from the coach's eyes. So I'm a guy that likes situation. I'm a guy that likes somebody that I can probably see is probably getting most of the touches. I like when they're in a position where there's not a lot of other players in the room with them. Like, if they're a running back, probably sharing the room with 2-3 other running backs, not 5-6 running backs. And that's kind of what got me on Logan Thomas last year. If you were asking about tight ends, it was one of the situations where I didn't see many other competitors in the tight end room. The guy had a unique profile as far as being a former quarterback from Virginia Tech, had speed, had strength. You know, all he needed was the opportunity, and the opportunity was there. Bam, you know, the rest is history. So I prefer opportunity, but don't forget talent, because when you pay attention to talent, once the opportunity does arise, that then becomes a sleeper.
Yeah, I think you brought it, you know, you mentioned, you sort of kind of described it perfectly. Where optimal talent intersects optimal opportunity, those guys usually get drafted in the first round. You look at somebody like C-Mac, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, etc. Those are obvious. But then when we start to kind of move down, even when we get to the second round, this is where we start to have the question. And I really kind of wanted to talk about, you know, players in this sense, because I think this is really what we battle with. This is how we decide who has quote unquote upside or who has value, etc.
Right.
So there are a number of guys who have the talent, or we view as talented, but the situation and opportunity may not necessarily be there. And this is at all different levels. We can start off in the second round. Let's take someone like Antonio Gibson. no one is arguing that Antonio Gibson shouldn't be going in the second round. Okay, I'm not making that argument. You want to take him anywhere in the second round, I'm not going to make that argument. What I will argue, though, is the certainty or this, notion that this is for sure. And I know most people aren't saying for sure, but, he seems to be the darling of 2021 as far as having that very, the potential RB1 overall upside. And when I see, what his situation looks like as far as having J.D. McKissic on this team, the guy who caught 90-plus passes, and we do this in fantasy all the time, we gravitate towards the guy that we want to succeed. So we want J.D. McKissic to go away. We want Peyton Barber to go away. We want all these players to go away because we want Antonio Gibson to be that RB1 overall. And then we have something like what we saw in the first preseason game. And I get it, granted, first preseason game, but we saw him come off a third down. And I understand he got 3 targets, only ran 8 plays. I get all of that. Again, we're not arguing if he should be going in the second round. We're arguing, can he be that number 1 overall? And in my mind, he would need to be a 3-down back. We always talk about these workhorse back. So I'm not saying that that's for sure what's going to happen or that his role is not going to expand. Again, that's just a data point. That's just another piece of this 4-dimensional puzzle. But that's something that concerns me. And then you go to a guy like Nick Chubb. That's the guy to me that I've talked about on the show all the time. To me, his talent is at the top.
Right.
But his situation is less than others. But that's a guy that, based on his talent, based on that O-line, based on everything that makes him successful, I'm willing to take that challenge. When we get to the mid rounds, a guy that I've been battling with lately because we've seen this wide receiver shift up 1 to 2 rounds, and it's making it very difficult to get a lot of these guys. Kenny Golladay, he seems to be there in the 6th round, early 7th round. Remember, last year, Kenny Golladay was going in the 2nd round. Kenny Golladay was everyone's Terry McLaurin and third round. Yeah, he was everyone's CeeDee Lamb and Terry McLaurin. He was supposed to set the world on fire. Yeah. And we knew the talent was there, okay? And by all accounts, by all the metrics, he's a very, very good player. And he has all the attributes of an elite wide receiver. But we understand what his situation is, okay? And so that's a guy, again, where, like, if you're in a large field tournament, he's someone I'm willing to take that shot on. Because to me, I don't think that he's going to be Steph Diggs, but I'm using that Steph Diggs comparison from, someone we're just not quite sure about. We know that they're talented, but we don't, the situation's a question mark. Yeah. But if his situation improves, then that ADP and that value can significantly improve. So as we talk about guys, I think moving forward, we're always going to bring up this idea of talent versus situation and opportunity, and where do they fall on those scales? And that should kind of help us out as far as determining, are we getting a player at value, or is this a player that we want to target, et cetera?
Right.
You brought up CeeDee Lamb. Have y'all finally caught up to Hard Knocks?
No.
Let's
pay no attention to Hard Knocks.
Are y'all just saying that just because it's the Cowboys and we're not supposed to be watching Cowboys?
No. I literally have never watched Hard Knocks today in my life.
I watch Hard Knocks, but I'm not watching the Cowboys.
I knew that. Yeah, it's gonna
no interest whatsoever.
All right.
We just lost about 30% of our viewership.
All right. But real quick, just to piggyback off what Abby was saying, a player that you could look at as having a good situation, but maybe we don't totally believe in the talent, is somebody like a Mike Davis.
Exactly.
Mike Davis, remember, this guy started off with this. I don't even know if he started with the Seahawks, but I think he was with the Seahawks. He was a third string running back. He then went to the Bears. I think they signed him to be the starter and lost the job before the season even started. I think that's when they drafted David Montgomery. Ended up going to the Panthers, and he was C-Mac's backup, and then he got the opportunity. The rest is history. But prior to, even up since last year, nobody thought Mike Davis was anything special. Now the guy's being taken in the round 4 or 5, maybe late 6. And why is his value that high? Because of his opportunity. I guarantee you, if the Falcons somehow signed a running back that had talent, that was any threat whatsoever to Mike Davis, people would be second guessing that Mike Davis pick. While at the same time, if the Panthers added somebody, nobody's going to be nervous about seeing that.
And this is important. And this is important because this is why we always preach stay ready. Because none of us were drafting, Myles Gaskin. We're not taking a victory lap because, one preseason game does not dictate or indicate, what the entire season is going to. I anticipate that Myles Gaskin gets the majority of the carries or the more profitable carries,
Right.
As far as receptions and things like that. I'm not saying don't take them, but one reason why we didn't have a lot of Myles Gaskin is because we really took a deep dive into that situation. We looked at the Malcolm Brown signing. Even though he's a Jag or just below average Jag, we understood that, he's someone.
They also added Carlos Hyde. No, what am I saying?
Yeah.
They
Drafted.
added Garrett Dokes.
Yeah, Dokes.
Another rookie running back.
And they have Salvin Ahmed on the roster,
They
I like
put in
that,
a
man.
waiver claim for Carryon
Yeah.
Johnson
Yeah.
when the Eagles kind of beat them to it. So you can kind of see
And
that.
and where does this coaching tree arise?
um,
Belichick. Yeah, Belichick.
right.
So
Another thing
Running
is
back by
the
committee.
Broncos traded in front of the Dolphins to draft Javonte Williams because they knew or they thought
Yeah.
for whatever reason the Dolphins were targeting Williams.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see they weren't sold
Yeah.
on Gaskin really being the guy.
And this is why I personally don't, buy into this idea of the running back dead zone. I don't just avoid 3 or 4 rounds of drafting running backs because historically it's shown to be the dead zone. No, I go by, you look at each running back and you determine, does this guy have a high likelihood of busting? What does his situation look like? What is his talent like? Because I guarantee you, if Gaskins was super talented, I don't care who's back there. I wouldn't be worried, and I would be taking him where he's going.
He'd probably be going higher if he was talented.
Exactly,
If he was
because you
talented,
could
so.
basically Jonathan Taylor. If we saw, Marlon Mack looks like he's back. I
That's
was
a good
wrong on that
count.
one.
Yeah.
Marlon Mack looks like he's back. But Jonathan Taylor is so much talented that even with Mack, even with Hines, you're willing to take him in the second round for us. But you're willing to take him that high because of the talent. So. Really understanding each situation and those running backs, I wouldn't say just completely ignore them. Take a deep dive in, figure out who you feel comfortable with.
Now, let me add one more thing, then we can move on.
Yeah.
Like I said, I usually prefer the running backs that have more of the situation, the touch opportunity. But the later I get in the draft, especially in FFPC, when you start talking about round 16 to the end, I'm going with the talent. I'm going with the super high upside.
That's how I define upside.
Yeah, the super high upside, because those are situations where whatever thing happens, and then those guys end up being in great situations, and then they already have the talent. So it's like you hit the lotto. You don't want a guy that's not talented that ends up getting the job, and you're not even excited about starting him because you think he sucks anyway. So the late rounds, I go with the high talent because that for me is upside. But in the mid to late, I go with more, situation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about upside a bit, but let's move to the quarterback position. This last week, I know it's preseason, but we got a chance to get a good look at these rookie quarterbacks. Let's go through, let's evaluate them a little bit. Yeah. Which rookie quarterback really surprised you in a good way and in a bad way?
I don't want to use the term very, but I like what I saw from Zach Wilson.
Okay.
And we've talked about Zach Wilson on the show, and I have these, you call it hedging all you want, but it's a contrasting views where I really like the talent of Zach Wilson. I felt like he had the most upside in the draft. I felt, I don't like...
Yeah, that flick of the wrist throw that we like.
I don't like comparing players. I know people don't like comparing players. And I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers or he's going to be Aaron Rodgers, but when I think of, just a light comp to give people an idea.
Saw Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I was seeing Aaron Rodgers in the type of throws that he was making, in his mobility, just in his moxie. I really loved what I saw coming into this year, and we understood the conference, et cetera, in terms of, some of the risks that were associated with that draft pick. But I really like what I saw in that preseason game, and he didn't make any big splash plays. We already knew he had arm talent, but I still love the zip that I saw on the ball. I love the accuracy. I love that he was not afraid to throw into tight windows. I loved his composure in the pocket. I really like what I saw from the offensive line, both in the pass and the run game. That gave me confidence that this offense can be balanced. And I think as a rookie quarterback, you need to be balanced. It's a little bit of a leap of faith in a first-time OC, but understanding, who this OC has studied under, I had some fair of optimism coming in. So when you kind of put all of that together, I'm not drafting Zach Wilson. And I'm talking about redrafts and best ball. Anybody's game, especially quarterbacks. But,
I have him in a best ball. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but in redraft, I'm not drafting him. But there are pieces in that offense now that before where I would not have considered. Now I'm considering.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know I've always been on Elijah Moore.
Moore. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Corey Davis. And I still would take Elijah Moore over Corey Davis just because, again, getting back to that talent versus opportunity, to me, I understand where he was drafted.
Y'all can keep sleeping on Corey Davis if you want to.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
me, what I've seen with my eyes, and I know this is very subjective, okay, but my own personal grade on Corey Davis is very, very low.
Okay.
Very, very low. So that's why I just don't draft Corey Davis. To me, the talent versus opportunity there's too big of a discrepancy there, too big a range. So I'd prefer a guy like Elijah Moore, where he may start off slow, but I feel like his talent will overcome his ability to separate. His, the rapport that I think he's already building with Zach Wilson, at least based on camp reports, I think that's going to be established. I think, to me, Corey Davis is someone who has a very difficult job of just separating, and for a rookie quarterback, he's going to look for that guy. And I think they're going to scheme, Elijah Moore open. But again, getting back to Zach Wilson, he was definitely, my favorite, from this past preseason.
Yeah.
As squad as it's kept, that receiver room is not that bad.
You talking about the Jets?
The Jets.
No,
they still got Jamison Crowder too.
I like Corey Davis.
Yeah,
Corey Davis was a top 10 draft pick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but
First round not too long ago. I know it's been a long time, but he went to the Titans, who was the great quarterback they had?
Right.
What was the great offensive system they had? AJ Brown was just a beast to me. Like, he's just an upper echelon receiver.
Yeah, but if you talk to people who I feel like they're different schools of thought in terms of that draft pick for Corey Davis, because we keep bringing up that he's a first round pick.
No,
but a lot of people felt like he should not have been a first round pick.
I got you. I'm just saying he has talent. He has talent. He has the prototypical size, and from the preseason, obviously Zach Miller likes to throw him the ball for whatever reason. So we don't know what's going to happen there, and he was their big offseason signing. If you really look at all the contracts they gave out, they gave him the most money. So, yeah, I like Corey Davis. I'm not saying I'm drafting him high. I'll take him at value. I'll definitely take him in the best ball. Zach Wilson, I think, is a perfect best ball quarterback. So I like that call. But I like Elijah Moore. I actually still kind of like Jamison Crowder. I don't really know what they're going to do with him, because it feels like him and Elijah Moore are the same type of receiver, but we don't know what's going to happen there. And as far as the other options they have Keenan Cole. They just signed. And they have Denzel Mims, who they seem like they were not really that high on. They didn't draft him. Remember, that was the old regime. So, I'm not going to hate on Corey Davis. But anyway.
But that's how I feel about Jamison Crowder, though. It seemed like they were willing to let him go
They were.
if he didn't sign back for less money.
No, yeah, to me, I think it's not necessarily a knock on Jamison Crowder's talent. I think it's based off of their scheme. They probably didn't see him as a high-value player. Right. I don't think that they're a team that's running a bunch of, or wants to run maybe a bunch of 3-4 wide receivers. Yeah, so maybe, or even if they do, I don't think they view the slot receiver as the ideal. So I actually see Elijah Moore as a flanker, as the outside wide receiver, and then he can kind of move around. That's more what I see Elijah Moore as. So I feel like he will be a starter regardless of the formation they run.
But Crowder has talent,
I'll
say that. We saw it just last year. So you never know what happens. Talent, as long as the opportunity's there, talent can show itself. But as far as the question you had with the quarterback,
that's what I was gonna say. Jets fans, we have given you your top pick.
No.
For this season.
New York, stand up.
Right.
First of all, let me not get on my soapbox too long. But for a number 2 draft pick, he sure is not talked about anywhere compared to the other quarterbacks in the first round. The number 2 overall pick. And there's 5 quarterbacks, and they talk about all other 4 ones except for him. So they need to talk more about.
Who surprised you though?
So that's what I was gonna say. None of them surprised me actually. They actually all looked the way I thought they were gonna look. And I'll take it even further. Not just those first round quarterbacks, but even the Kelly Monds, the Trask, and the Davis Mills. They all look fairly okay too. Now remember, Mond was just dealing with COVID. I think he had like 4 or 5 days of practice. Yeah. So he really didn't have that many reps, but he didn't look like he was out of place. Kyle Trask did okay. Davis Mills did okay. And these are all rookies we're talking about. So they all looked good. Trey Lance, he had some high plays and he had some low plays, which is kind of where you would think Trey Lance would be. That's the reason why he's a project, That's the reason he's not starting day one. But you can see what's in there. You can see why they coveted him so much. Justin Fields, you saw that composure, that same composure he showed when he was at Ohio State. So, that wasn't a surprise. Trevor Lawrence, you can kind of see he might have been a little bit nervous, but you can also see that once he kind of settles down, he'll probably be perfect for that job there as far as being in Jacksonville. So all of them look good to me. Mac Jones, we already discussed him. Yeah. He looked pretty good. Mac Jones looked. Actually, if I was to say which one looked the best, I'd probably say it's Mac Jones. He didn't run as much.
Y'all don't like how Justin Fields looked?
So Justin Fields, to me, when he made those plays, number one, the plays that he made, I was not all that impressed with. One of the wide receivers was wide open.
Running play,
they were against backups.
The running play wasn't that.
There was nothing
he just
special.
Ran to the side and ran in.
I just saw flashes that made me think, okay.
I saw nothing. And it changes. It doesn't change my ADP whatsoever.
That's what I'm saying. It looked the way I thought he would look.
But I didn't see any. I didn't see the Justin Fields of the collegiate days, or that's why they drafted him. Mm-hmm. He looked very average to me. The plays were very average. Again, he started to exceed, if you want to even say use the term exceed, against the backup defense. I was not very impressed with Trevor Lawrence. And this changes nothing about his ADP to me. But this is actually one of those situations where, when we look at talent versus situation, because I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I kind of went off on that, Trevor Lawrence is the alternative to the Trey Lance if you miss out. But when I was, grading these quarterbacks coming out of the draft and then going back and watching film, I was not one of the ones who felt like Trevor Lawrence was like the easy number one overall pick. No, I did not. I felt like, I could see why they would take him as number one, but, I was hearing things that he is, this generational pick. He's like the,
I didn't see generational pick either.
I saw none of that. Saw none of that. And so actually what I saw when I kind of, was reviewing his college tape was basically, at least from an inadequacy standpoint, was kind of what I saw this preseason. Again, this means nothing because number one, the plays that they ran were very vanilla and likely, and I'm fairly confident that Urban and Dan Camp and what's the OC's name?
Is it? No, it's not Schottenheimer. It's one of those Seahawks.
Yeah, he was with the Detroit Lions. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but I'm fairly sure that they were very vanilla.
Darren
and didn't
Bevel,
show,
was it?
Yeah, Bevel. I'm very sure that they didn't show anything. So I'm not really necessarily talking about the plays, but it's even that one play to Marvin Jones. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You can. That'll probably be the last time he's able to sit in a pocket for 6 seconds and be untouched.
What?
And
he had all day,
and it was like he struggled going through the progressions, and I felt like he locked in on them. And yes, you could see the arm talent there. There was zip on the ball, and it was just he was able to get it to Marvin Jones, but. Didn't really like that. So
y'all being hard. They're rookies.
Again, I know they're rookies. What I'm
first
saying,
preseason game.
What I'm saying though is that correlated to what I saw from a college standpoint.
Right.
But this goes again to the situation and opportunity.
Yeah.
So number one, he's not running like Justin Fields, but
he can run though.
He can move.
Exactly. But he can run. So that's one reason why I liked him. I also love the offensive weapons there. Mm-hmm. So I still am drafting him and still have the same optimism I had before that. So it didn't change anything. Right. But in terms of people who didn't shock me, he was one. I will say this though, the way he locked on to Marvin Jones. Mm-hmm. You damn believe that to me it did change as far as how I'm going to be drafting Marvin Jones, and he's been talked about as definitely it's one of those situations where everyone's just take the cheaper guy. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about before I don't believe in that necessarily, but this is one of those situations where I'm 100% taking the cheaper guy, especially given where he's going in drafts.
Yeah, y'all know that preseason doesn't do nothing to me. So
I know we know
that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, we know.
Again, they all look good to me for rookie quarterbacks, first ever NFL experience. None of them look like they were just
backups, though.
Totally off.
They were playing against backups.
But historically, there's been a lot of instances where these rookies come in the preseason, they just don't look good. Because it's their first time. The lights. They're under the lights. They're on TV.
But we felt like this was going to be a good QB class.
We did. And so far, they're not disappointing is all I'm saying.
No. Right, and again, what they've done in training camps and OTAs and all the reports we've heard has way more weight and way more precedent than what is going on in preseason. I think, preseason, especially that first game, I think coaches are really just saying, okay, let's line up appropriately. Let's avoid these stupid penalties. Like let's just get the basics down. And I love what I heard from Urban Meyer. We got to pick up the pace. I felt like we were too sluggish. I want to move at a quicker pace. I love that.
Kelly offense
that was the biggest thing that I took from that game. We want a quicker pace.
Right.
Love hearing that from a coach.
Yeah. So we talked about rookie quarterbacks. Let's talk about rookie receivers. I never feel good drafting rookie receivers. How do you guys evaluate rookie receivers, and are you really drafting them? I don't trust a rookie receiver. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Each situation has to be evaluated independently.
Yeah.
And we always say that.
Put everything in context.
Yeah. So the reason Devontae Smith goes where he goes is because, when you look around at the competition of targets, there aren't many, especially from the wide receiver position. So that's why, and then obviously, maybe some of the Justin Jefferson, hype or what he was able to do last year makes people a little bit more comfortable. Right. But then you see guys like Jalen Waddle, who was drafted ahead of him, go much late, and that's again because you're looking at talent versus situation and opportunity. So I think you just got to be careful. These are perfect guys to draft late in drafts. These are lottery picks, in my opinion, because their talent can overcome, like you said, the cream can rise to the top. Right. But then also, they're one injury away from really being relevant. And one guy we talked about all the time, Rondell Moore. I mean, that was one guy that I was very impressed with what I saw. And this is exactly what we talked about from like day one of the podcast.
Everybody talking about Rondell Moore, man.
This dude, we've been talking about this, for 2 months now, in terms of how explosive he is, how I saw them using him. It was one reason why, it was a minor reason, but one reason why I wasn't drafting Chase Edmonds is because I felt like Rondell Moore was going to get some touches out of the backfield. He can be used in that situation. Yeah. So we saw him on reverse or jet sweeps. I really think he's going to play that slot position, that Larry Fitzgerald position. I really think he's got that job. And like I talked about before, this is one reason why I'm so high on Kyler Murray is because I feel like adding Rondell Moore to that team is really going to allow that offense to absolutely explode.
Yeah. I like all the rookie receivers, honestly. The ADP might be in question. Like Jamar Chase is going in the 5th round. That might be he's going in the 4th round.
Oh, yeah.
4th or 5th. It depends. That might be in question. But I like Jamar Chase a lot. So, I don't mind that pick. I've liked him for a while. Devontae Smith, I like a lot, where he's going. We spoke about Rondell Moore. Terrence Marshall is looking like a great value where he's going. What other rookie wide receivers came in? Jalen Waddle. Yeah. We're seeing these highlights. Highlights are, they're
Bateman
highlights.
Before his injury.
Who?
Bateman before his injury.
Bateman was a value. They were talking about how good he looked in camp. Even if you go even later, Damien Brown, Nico Collins.
These guys one injury away.
Yeah, you mentioned Elijah Moore. All these rookies look like they can contribute. Now, they might not contribute week 1. Yeah. But, if you look at the past few years in the NFL, these rookie running backs by the end of the season end up just being beasts, And this was supposedly one of the better receiver classes in a while. So I like the rookie wide receivers.
Yeah. You just have to be patient when you draft these guys, just like with rookie running backs, but I think even more so with rookie wide receivers, especially the ones that are on bad teams. So somebody like a Nico Collins, if you don't feel like you can sit on Nico Collins for 6 weeks, with knowing that he's the 3rd string, then you shouldn't draft him. I'm drafting Nico Collins because I'm assuming that this Texans team is not going to be in a playoff race. So at some point in the season, they're going to go from, trying to be competitive in games to trying to evaluate their player personnel. And that especially means their rookies, potentially their rookie quarterback, but especially their rookie wide receiver. Nico has already been getting a lot of buzz in camp. So I really like Nico where he's going because, again, we're not hoping for injuries, but if, Cooks is not the most healthiest person. He's been healthy the last few years, but anything could happen.
He hasn't missed that many games,
but even with Cooks, I feel like he could offer quite a bit of value. The last thing I want to say about Terrence Marshall. We've been a Terrence Marshall fan. Okay, I've been a Terrence Marshall. I'm not saying that he's Curtis Samuel. I don't even think he's Curtis Samuel. The reason I like Terrence Marshall is because I think he's going to line up in the slot, but I especially like him because I feel like he could lead that team in the receiving core and touchdowns. I feel like people always talk about DJ Moore. Because the amount of targets he gets, we have to see some positive TD regression. Well, some of these players just aren't good in the red zone. And some of these teams don't want to target these players in the red zone. So it's not always about, oh, this guy gets X amount of targets. That means we have to see TD regression. You can see some teams specifically target guys in the red zone. And some players are built to be targeted in the red zone, and some players are not. So for me, Terrence Marshall, that big body slot wide receiver, I really think he could, be a red zone threat. I will say, though, I was not happy to see him get run down on that. I was not impressed by that play whatsoever. But then to see him get run down, and we've seen him run away from defenders in college. But that was, I think he got 4.45 speed or something like that.
Part of that DJ Moore, before we move on, might be due to the quarterback though.
Okay, so I don't have high hopes for Sam Darnold. That's just shit. I just
So let's talk about ambiguous backfields, because my guy Jimmy Williams on YouTube, this is a shout out to you. You actually talked about ambiguous backfields, and you wanted us to talk about Miami and the Patriots, but I actually think there's a lot more. There are tons of backfields that are pretty ambiguous, and I know that we talked about it in the group chat. I want to touch on some of those backfields, whether it's the Rams or the Chargers or the Saints. And I know what you're thinking. Alvin Kamara is there with the Saints, but what if Alvin Kamara goes down? I want to talk about some of these backfields, and who do you guys think is the best handcuff to have in the backfield? I know we did a segment last week on handcuffs, but let's talk about ambiguous backfield. So let's start off with Miami, because I know that we touched on that quite a bit.
Wait, before we get to Miami, let me just mention the Texans real quick, because I need to take that L. Okay.
Good.
Preseason should not, it's just one preseason game, but we've been kind of hearing some things kind of here and there, and we've been constantly talking about it. And Dayo's always been draft Phillip Lindsay. So we went from David Johnson is a value in the 9th and 10th round.
I have tons of Johnson too.
The crazy thing is, and I feel bad, and I apologize to everyone out there who I was draft David Johnson. I have some David Johnson shares, but I have way more Phillip Lindsay shares. But I also did mention, when you draft David Johnson, because of where Phillip Lindsay was going, especially at that time,
it was easy to handcuff.
Yeah, and I didn't even consider it a handcuff, but I felt like both were going so late that I'll just grab one running back from that backfield. So I'm taking an early L on that. And again, anything can change. David Johnson's still getting the third down role. And when I talked about it, I talked about they were likely going to be a negative game script. My idea was that, or what I envisioned and what I thought, and again, this is where you kind of get yourself into trouble with assumption, was that it was really going to be David Johnson and Phillip Lindsay as the main ball carriers. I felt like Ingram was really going to be kind of in a minor role or even off the team. And my thought process was that because they were going to be in a negative game script situation, that David Johnson was going to get the majority of the hurry up, the 2-minute offense and the third down work. So the receptions, which is really what we cared about. And I felt like he's more the back to be used at the goal line. So I felt like the valuable touches in that backfield were going to go to David Johnson. So obviously, we saw the depth chart news, and we kind of already heard about it before. Phillip Lindsay just somehow is my most highest owned running back, by the way. Right?
Good. Wow. Very good.
But even then, I'm at the point right now, especially because I'm anticipating Phillip Lindsay's ADP rising, I won't be drafting any Texans running back. Now, because we have to, or at least early on right now, there's the assumption that Mark Ingram is the co-starter with Phillip Lindsay. So we're seeing those two split the first, the early down work, and then David Johnson coming in for the third down work. 2 I can deal with. 3 is too much for me.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I still
I'm taking the L on that.
Obviously I got a lot of Lindsay. I've been trying to tell everybody to draft as much Lindsay as possible. To me, other than what I heard and all the, because again, we have our personal beliefs as far as talent, but again, like we mentioned earlier today, it doesn't matter. It's all about what the coaches care about. To me, the best pure runner out of the 3 was Phillip Lindsay. We saw what David Johnson has looked like in these last 2 years, and if you talk about a player that looks broken, David Johnson, when he's in the backfield running the ball, he just has not produced.
Him and Gurley were 2 guys we didn't want to draft. We were not drafting.
It just was not happening whatsoever.
Yeah.
He looked slow getting out the blocks.
Yeah.
He wasn't breaking tackles. He did look good when he was catching the ball. Coming out the backfield or lining out wide. But as far as just being a running back, and I've always been under the assumption that this Texans team wants to run the ball a lot more. So if you bring in the type of players they brought in, Ingram, they actually brought in Ingram first before Lindsey was available. Lindsey was tagged. I don't know if it was a transition or the franchise tag by the Broncos, so he wasn't even available. But then during the offseason, at one point, they took the tag away from Lindsey. Once they rescinded the offer, the Texans ended up signing Lindsey. So they signed, or Lindsey wasn't even available when Ingram was signed. So who's to say if Lindsey was available from the jump, they probably wouldn't even have signed Ingram, you know? And I even think they restructured David Johnson's contract by that time period. So they still brought this guy in. Again, for me, he's the best pure runner. And I was hearing the reports even as far back as OTAs as far as him getting those first team reps. So he was always a value. Where he's going now, I still don't think people believe in the Texans.
If he's going 11th, 12th, I mean, even the 10th, depending on how your team is started. If he's going there, then yes, draft him.
I think he's still going to be available there because I still think people are not going to really feel like drafting the Texans running back.
Because think about it. Number one, again, and I think this is like a little trick that I use for, I'm going to call this a bad team, a non-playoff team. Let's use that term, a non-playoff team.
We going to the playoffs.
Okay. But that back half of the season, that's when they get into player evaluation mode, especially in a rebuilding franchise. You know, whether we want to call them rebuild or not, but that's when they get into player franchise mode. So these veterans, it could be the littlest thing. It's going to be, you're sitting out this week, maybe 2 weeks, okay? And again, Ingram and David Johnson are already older backs anyway. Right. So
over 30, both
exactly.
Of them.
So if you can get Lindsey in those double-digit rounds, and I guess now's the time to do it. And you know, we've mentioned Lindsey before on the podcast, so you should have been getting him anyway. I'll take a partial L. No, I'll take the full L. But if you can get Lindsey now, just again, he's one of those guys you just kind of hold on to because all it's going to take is one of those guys to be removed from the equation. Okay, and now you got your Phillip Lindsay that you had in Denver Broncos, and he was being drafted a lot earlier than the 11th and 12th.
And all those guys do have injury concerns.
Yeah, they all got injury concerns.
Now, as far as the other ambiguous backfields, you mentioned the Patriots.
Let's talk about the Patriots for a second.
The guy I'm high on, and we've talked about him already on the show, Damien Harris, who I didn't watch the game, but
you were high on him early too.
Yeah, but apparently I guess people felt like whatever happened in the game made his value improve because I'm seeing all these tweets as far as rocket ships up, you know, the stock market graph going up. Something happened in that game. I love
that emoji, bro.
I don't know. So
I don't.
So Damien Harris is there. Sony Michel is still there, and that's a guy everybody expected to be moved at some point, if not made the team. But he's still moving. Now, with that being said,
it doesn't make sense for them to move him though, because if Damien Harris hasn't been the most healthiest back, but if Damien Harris goes down, then who's filling his spot? Don't tell me Ramondre.
They have other guys. And
they have other guys, but not other guys that play that early down role.
Actually, they do. I haven't got to him yet, but they do.
Don't say Ramondre Stevenson.
I'm not gonna say him, but Sony Michel. But here's the thing with Sony Michel. He was playing into the third quarter of that Patriots preseason game. Usually a guy from historically in preseason game that I've seen, guy that's typically in the plans for the team as far as being a high-end player is not playing into the third quarter. You know, it's not like he's a young rookie or anything like that. But anyways, they have him. They have James White. But the other guy they have, and they talked about it, or I talked about it on the show I was in on the Go District yesterday with Shelly. They have J.J. Taylor.
He's a small guy though.
J.J. Taylor,
he's a special teams guy.
He's small as in height. He's not small as in
he is not an in between attack. He's not going to be. He's not going to replace Damien Harris.
He was running that way last year, and they gave him a lot of carry. They gave him a fair amount of carries. All I'm saying, he's there.
He's a scat back.
He's there. He's not a passing down back.
But what I'm saying is that I think the reason that they're not just giving away Sony Michel is because they want a legit RB2.
Okay, I mean that's fine. I'm just saying
running back.
There's guys there, and then of course there's Ramondre Stevenson who. He ran a long play, I guess.
Literally at the end of the game, did not even matter. That was inconsequential.
So he's there. So the guy for me is still Damien Harris. I'm not wavering. I mean, y'all know me. Nothing in this preseason can happen that's going to really sway what I see in anything. So that's that. Now,
let me say. So it also didn't change anything for me because also who we saw playing with the first team was James White. And James White has been the forgotten man, and he's like one of the last running backs drafted.
Is
in
he?
a lot
I
of
think he's
drafts.
still being taken like
Well, I mean,
13th round,
okay,
maybe?
you know what I mean. He's going he's going later than that.
Yeah, way
I feel
later.
he's going way later than that. So he's playing with the first team. And then again, if you're looking at Mac Jones starting, well, now you got a non-mobile quarterback. And again, this is why I'm so high on DeAndre Swift. When you have a and when I say non-mobile, I don't just mean non-mobile that they're like the Konami codes. I also mean like non-mobile in the pocket. Some quarterbacks can really move in the pocket. They may not run, but they can really move in the pocket.
Right.
Stafford is kind of like that. He wants to be a throwing quarterback, but he can move in the pocket and maybe a scramble a little bit here or there, but he really moves in the pocket because he's really looking downfield. But when you have a non-mobile quarterback, they're going to sit in the pocket for a little bit, and if their reads aren't there, dump it down, especially in this offense. So James White, I think has just been a value in drafts, and that's one reason why I don't have a lot of Damien Harris. And it's just it's a personal preference when it comes to drafting because I'm not saying that he's not a value in the 8th to 9th to 10th round, but he's not the type of running back that I'd like to draft on my team. He has value. And if I'm in a pinch, if I go 0 RB or what have you, et cetera, or he falls to round 10, yes, I'm going to take him and maybe I'll use him here or there. But he's not the running back that I'm like, okay, yeah, I want that guy as my RB2.
I think you're sleeping on Damien Harris, man.
I want a running back that's not just going to run on first and second down. I want a running back that's going to be able to catch passes.
I'm not sure. I believe he's going to only be a first and second down running back personally, but I mean.
So that means that offense would have to literally change everything that they've done. For the last decade.
They kind of have to. I mean, they're bringing in a new quarterback. I mean, Cam.
How do they have to? They don't have to.
Brady's gone. The offense to me was Brady. Everybody knows.
Okay, so Mac Jones is Brady.
Mac Jones.
No, stop.
Mac Jones.
No. He's the replacement.
Not Brady.
He's the replacement, not from a talent standpoint, but
nobody's a true replacement for Brady. We all know that. Brady is his own offense.
Look, so I'm not saying that his talent is anything like Brady's. What I'm saying is that they brought in Mac Jones. Mac Jones is more like Tom Brady than Cam Jones is. Not from a talent standpoint.
Cam Newton.
Not from a talent standpoint, but I'm talking about from a standpoint of how they run that offense.
For me, Damien Harris's value is higher with Mac Jones than it is with Cam.
Yeah, I agree with that. That I agree with.
That's actually a good thing.
That I agree with.
So that's the Patriots' ambiguous backfield.
Yeah. What about the Jets?
Okay, so the Jets.
Ooh.
So y'all know.
Yeah, we haven't really been on.
I guess I'm always just in the minority with these.
That's why you got to put it on tape because they don't know.
you
got to put it on wax. They don't know.
But we know. For a long time, I've been on Tevin Coleman. I don't even remember why. I think it's because I was saying that he came from the 49ers, which is the new OC for the Jets. That's where they came from. The head coach came from the 49ers. Yeah. He's the veteran. They paid him a okay amount of money. He still has talent. He just has been injured. So I've been on Tevin Coleman. But the other guys there is Michael Carter, and that's the guy that everybody's trying to draft. He's going in the 6th, 7th round.
Mostly 7th, I think.
Yeah, 6th or 7th round. So that's the target for most people. Most people, they're really high on Michael Carter. Really, really high. And we've talked about him already a little bit, that we're not as high on him, or I don't know if you changed your mind.
No, I like his talent.
Talent.
But I don't like that situation.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, and even going to the preseason, I felt like Ty Johnson looked pretty damn good.
Johnson.
And when Ty Johnson's in a running back by committee, he can look good for a long period of time.
Ty Johnson was drafted by the Lions last year, maybe, or maybe the year before. Super fast. Yeah. Like I think he was one of the fastest guys in his combine. But he was waived by the Lions and picked up by the Jets midseason last year. So he's just another cog in that room. And then they still have LaMichael Pirine.
And I hear random, just positive
about Pirine?
drum beats about Pirine.
Really?
Yes.
He went to the University of Florida. He's Samaje Pirine's cousin, I believe.
Yeah.
But he got a little burn last year. They still have Josh Adams. I don't know if y'all remember Josh.
Oh, yeah, I remember Josh Adams with the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, he gave me some good weeks.
Big dude. Yep. They still have him there for whatever reason. And they might even have another guy that we're not even mentioning. So they just have all these pieces. They might be a full-blown committee.
Yeah.
Full-blown committee. Now, I will say, from things I've seen and read, Coleman is getting a lot of first-team reps.
He has been. And he didn't play in this game.
And Coleman is
he's a
somebody
veteran.
you can draft real late. So if you want to bet or use a stay ready bet, ability, we're probably going to say Tevin Coleman,
Yeah.
No, in terms of who to draft?
Yeah.
I'm not drafting Tevin. I started, I believe what you said. I understood what you said, but it came down to the talent.
So you're drafting Michael Carter in the sixth?
I've not seen Tevin Coleman I've not seen him succeed in this zone blocking scheme.
So you're drafting Michael Carter in sixth?
No, I'm not.
So
no,
who are you drafting?
I'm not drafting any of them.
But
If I had to
you're
pick
gonna
one,
draft-
I would Ty Johnson or maybe Michael Carter if he fell to the seventh.
You're
or
not
eighth.
drafting Ty Johnson, man.
I've drafted Ty Johnson
You're
before.
not drafting Ty.
I've drafted Ty Johnson before. You didn't watch the game.
The game swayed you that much?
It didn't sway me. If you would have asked me this question 3 weeks ago, it would have been Ty Johnson.
Really?
For a second, it was Tevin Coleman because you got me up to Tevin Coleman.
would've been
But then
taking
I
Ty
remembered,
Johnson.
okay, I've seen Tevin Coleman play plenty of time, and I'm not saying Tevin Coleman's a bad player. I just, I've not seen him succeed in his offense, and he's had all the opportunity.
Okay, but before this past game this weekend, you're telling me you were targeting or you had an eye on Ty Johnson.
I probably have more Ty Johnson. I definitely have more Ty Johnson than I have Michael Carter.
Really?
I don't really have a lot of them though. I mean, I'm not targeting any of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the other team you were mentioning?
Well,
you said Miami too, right?
Right. So
But
let's
didn't we
talk
talk
about
them already?
We kind of did, but I mean, Myles Gaskin is going kind of high for a
Well,
guy
now
that
he's
looks like
going
he's
late.
a
Yeah, he's
change
starting to
of
fall a little
pace.
bit.
I'm in a main event right now, and we are going into the 8th round. I want to say mid-8th, and he's still on the board. He's still.
Oh,
he's
wow.
He's still available.
He was going a lot higher than that earlier in
was.
this draft season.
Oh, yeah.
Because people were still searching for a running back.
Yeah.
Especially if people that went zero running back,
Yeah.
they were still searching for some kind of starter that can give them, at least points every week, at least
Mm-hmm.
week one. The problem
It
with
was that same deal where like we want this guy to succeed, so we're just gonna completely trash this other guy.
Right.
Like we're just gonna say Malcolm Brown is a nobody. Don't worry about him. This is Miles. But the problem is Gaskin. Okay, he was okay last year. He was good, but his talent is not on the level where he can just
or he has that job
dominate.
security.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or where an offensive coordinator is going to say, okay, yeah, this is your backfield.
Right.
They don't owe him anything.
Yeah, people for me when I look at these every year when these drafts come around, I always look at these players that a year prior we were not drafting, or nobody even really knew who they were.
Yeah.
That's who Myles Gaskin was. Nobody was drafting Myles Gaskin last year. Myles Gaskin. I don't even remember who the Dolphins. They had Jordan Howard last year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They had somebody else.
Jordan Howard, yeah.
back there.
And Jordan Howard was not a fan, or the OC at the time was
He
not
didn't
a
like
fan.
him.
He did not like him.
Yeah.
He did not feel like
Yeah.
he fit his system, which is
Yeah.
why they really didn't use him.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a situation that was created where basically there was not a Malcolm Brown there, and it was really just Gaskin.
Right. So he just kind of fell into that position. He thrived to some extent, but he wasn't a guy that they picked up specifically to be their main back.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it already. They signed Malcolm Brown. He was one of their first signings, and I heard the coaches talk about how they liked the way he looked when the Rams played the Dolphins last year as far as how he was running and pass blocking. So they favored him to some extent. You have the Garrett Dokes. We talked about him already, who's a rookie who actually looked pretty good. He was one of the higher ranked running backs in the draft. He didn't go high. It was a 7th round pick, but he was there. They wanted to get Javonte Williams. They still have some Salvon Ahmed or whatever. Salvon Ahmed. Right.
Yeah.
So there's other players there that just kind of mess around with those touches.
This team wants to pass, and they want to pass down the field. Okay?
And their offensive line is not that great.
It's
either.
not that great. So I think the reason that Malcolm Brown is like going to be getting a lot of this work is because he's going to be pass blocking a lot. So I think and that's just not a skill set or where
Malcolm
Gaskin
Brown
succeeds.
is another guy I was mentioning a long time ago to tell everybody to kind
But
of.
we gave you credit on that already. Did we talk about Jags already?
We did.
No, we did not talk about
no,
the
we
Jags.
didn't
Did we talk
backfield.
about the Jags,
No,
right?
no, we didn't talk about the Jags backfield. Okay,
All right.
this is where. Okay.
We've talked about the Jags
it's
before,
one,
though.
It's just one preseason game. Okay. I really don't want much of Travis Etienne in the 4th round.
Okay.
I really don't even want him in the 5th round. Okay.
Is he going
It's
in
just
the
too high.
4th?
He's going in the 4th or 5th. I think
Wow.
he, especially for people who go 0 RB,
Okay.
because they think the talented guy, Percy Harvin role, receptions, etc. He's like, I think, the perfect 0 RB target. But I see him go in the 4th round, or at the very least early 5th. And whether you want to look at depth charts, whether you want to look at beat reporters, whether you want to look at the first preseason game, whether you want to even listen to coach speak, everything has basically said and shown that James Robinson is going to be the lead running back. But that also, like you mentioned before, Carlos Hyde is going to get some touches as well. And then Travis Etienne is going to be kind of mixed in here or there, not as a third down back, okay? He's not going to be the third down back. Mm-hmm. So his touches are going to have to be designed. But how many design touches is he going to get? From a standpoint of him being fantasy viable. I just cannot touch him in the 4th round.
Yeah.
I don't even want him in the 5th round, to be quite honest. I have 1 to 2 shares just to say, okay, just in case. But I think people view him as, people view him in the same light of Javonte Williams. And I would rather have Javonte Williams if we talk about Broncos backfield. I'd rather have Javonte Williams because people view him as that running back that, okay, you just got to be patient, and then towards the end of the year, he's going to take over the lead job. I don't see it that way at all. Yeah. I think he has a role, and that is his role for this year. And I even think, again, he was one of those guys where I've said it before and I'll say it again, like I was not impressed by his college tape. Okay? Mm-hmm. He was in a very good offense, running through wide open lanes. He had a very athletic quarterback who was running RPOs. Teams were worried about the pass game, and they were worried about the quarterback specifically. And so he was either, one-on-one with linebackers, or just, in open space. Well, yes, in open space against a linebacker, he's going to be able to do some great things. Yeah. And if they can scheme and they make him a focal part, maybe he'll have some value from that standpoint. But there are a lot of talented pieces in this offense, and this is the NFL. So, drafting him in the 4th round to me is just it's hard to swallow.
Yeah. So you wanted to also talk about the Saints backfield as an ambiguous backfield.
I did. Oh no, you did.
No. I didn't mention the Saints.
Somebody put it into
we can talk
group
about
chat.
it if y'all want, but I didn't mention.
Okay.
To me, it's not really that ambiguous. Kamara is the guy.
Kamara's the guy.
Like, he's the guy. Now, if you want to talk about the depth behind him,
mm-hmm.
everybody right now is under the assumption it's going to be Latavius Murray. And I say it as if it's not, but it most likely will be Latavius Murray. But there's a few things you just have to kind of be aware of. Number one, the Saints do have an out in that Latavius Murray contract. Latavius Murray is older, 31 or 32 years old. He doesn't have a great skill set. He's a bruiser. He's strong, okay speed, but it's not something that you can't replace one way or another. They just added Devontae Freeman, who's somebody who, 2 years ago, you would look at as more talented than Latavius Murray. I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to get rid of or move on for Latavius Murray. That's all I'm really saying.
I would be shocked.
No. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I would be shocked.
The guy that was there that I had my eye on for a while was Stevie Scott. He played college. He's a rookie from Indiana. They actually just waived him. So I guess ignore that guy. But the other guy they're talking about this week is this Tony Jones guy that he looked pretty good when we were here on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We were seeing him kind of run a little bit. So he looked pretty good. And again, Devontae Freeman's there. They're not going to keep all of those running backs. Somebody's got to go.
I think both Latavius and Freeman remain on the roster.
So they might get rid of Tony Jones. But all I'm saying is, with that out, NFL is still a business.
Mm-hmm.
People are trying to save money. Yeah. And Kamara, they just paid Kamara last year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's making a good amount of money. Do you want to invest all that money in Kamara and then still pay Murray when you can get rid of him, still get that same production as a backup? I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints do it. Now, with that being said, I don't think it's ambiguous at the moment. We know what it is.
Yeah, this is why I think Latavius stays on the roster. Okay, I think that they are really going to harp on running the ball and having their running backs be involved significantly in the pass game. I don't really see Kamara getting more carries or significantly more carries because he's just not that type of running back, and they want to keep him fresh. This team still has playoff aspirations. So I think that they just didn't have somebody that was behind Latavius Murray, and they wanted depth. Understanding that Michael Thomas is hurt, Drew Brees is no longer there, that they may be more run heavy. They needed depth. Remember, we talked about this a couple times. There's an additional game this year.
Yeah.
We can't underestimate that, and I think coaches and teams understand that you can't just run your teams and run your players into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So having that depth there, I think, is important. So I think that's what Freeman provides, is depth at their position. Now, do Latavius and Freeman split carries? Like, that's up in the air. Who knows? So to me, Latavius is less of that. Okay, let's target him as one of the higher priced handcuffs. But the other thing that I think went under the radar was that I think there was a comment or a quote, and I can't remember if this was from the coach or the beat writer, but they mentioned that one of the reasons they brought in Freeman is because they had to take Ty Montgomery and move him to wide receiver. That reduced their depth at the running back position. And if you watch that preseason game, Ty Montgomery was running with the first team, and he was running real receiver routes. And he was running out of the slot. And they were short routes, underneath routes, and there were intermediate routes. He ran one down the seam, okay? I don't know what Ty Montgomery's designation is. I'm not saying start drafting Ty Montgomery now. But if but listen, if Ty Montgomery has a running back designation, just keep an eye on it, okay? Just keep an eye on it, because they still haven't brought in anybody of significance. Who did they bring in just recently? What's his name?
Receiver, Kevin White.
Kevin White, failed first round pick. That's again, people always want to bring up, well, this guy was a first round pick. This dude was drafted top 10 overall, as amounted to absolutely
a lot of
nothing.
injury issues though.
I mean, even he's came back from injuries. He still hasn't done anything. He's been on plenty of teams. So, but either way, they brought in Kevin White. They have a bunch of So for Ty Montgomery to be running with the first team, and remember, this team has always been kind of high on Ty Montgomery. Just from a player standpoint, they went out and got him. So I'm just saying, again,
don't draft Ty Montgomery.
Only because from a running back standpoint, if you go on 0 RB, you never know if he ends up being a slot receiver. Because who's their slot receiver right now?
Still don't draft him. Anyways,
Let's talk
don't
about
be surprised if Murray leaves. What was it?
Let's talk about one more team though.
Okay.
Tampa Bay, because I don't know what to do with Tampa Bay. I mean, Ronald Jones. Is it Leonard Fournette? They just got Gio.
I'm going Gio.
Yeah, this was as soon as they signed Gio, this question was answered.
Easy.
Really?
We've never had, which is why we literally the only person we drafted is Gio.
Gio, I have no Rojo or
zero.
Fournette.
Zero, and that's hard to not have a share of a certain player, especially drafted in that mid-tier round. That's hard. That's hard to do. I have zero.
So you guys think Gio is going to own that backfield?
No. He's getting the passing
He's
down.
the most valuable one. There.
Yeah, I expect him to get the 2-minute work. The third down work. And remember, we've seen James White operate in the red zone and at the goal line. We know that Brady runs quick, okay? So if it's a third down and Gio's in there and they convert and Brady's like, let's go. Gio's staying on the field. They get in the red zone, he's not calling the timeout to say, let's get this bruiser in. No, he will run that offense.
And Gio can run through the middle of the whole
People forget. Go back and look. You know what? Go back and look at Gio's when they played the Pittsburgh Steelers towards the end of the season. Go back and the game's on YouTube. Go back and look at that game, and that'll give you everything that you need to know. That was just last year.
What round is Gio going in right now?
I'd probably
I think he just had a board up.
Let me see.
13th to 14th round.
Because when I was taking him, I was getting him real late. Real late.
So Gio went in the 13th.
Kind of went up a little bit.
Yeah. We were that's like 16, 17, 18.
Really late in the draft. So,
which is where we're getting certain players right now.
Yeah. These boards is crazy, man. I'd say these boards are crazy.
It's definitely in
Some
flux.
players, these boards are crazy.
So let's hop back to quarterbacks for a second. Speaking of ambiguous backfields, let's talk about an ambiguous quarterback position. Who are you guys taking to win this Denver quarterback?
Have we not spoken on this already?
We have not spoken about.
It's only been in our group chat.
Yeah, we have not spoken about the Denver quarterback battle.
I'm still on my guy.
I'm still on my guy, but the preseason didn't change any of that. Nothing that's come out of camp as far as reports and who's doing well. Like really, this seems to be a kind of a coin flip in terms of who wins this. The reason I think it's Teddy Bridgewater is because I feel like he does a better job of running the offense the way that they want it, and I feel like this defense is going to be extremely strong. It's one of the defenses that I target late in drafts. I think that they are going to excel, and I think they want a quarterback back there that's not going to turn over the ball. They have, from what the one thing that I did take away from that preseason game is that they have a very, very good offensive line. Okay, from a standpoint of they just seem to just work and gel very well together. I love their outside zone scheme. Javonte Williams, again, is a guy that I wasn't super high coming out, and I wasn't like, amazed at what he did, but he looked very, very good coming out of the coming out of the gate in his first preseason game. So I think it's a team that's really going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to win with defense, and is going to want a quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over. So that's why I'm going Teddy Bridgewater. And he looked good. He looked really good. He made some very, very good throws, and people don't, Teddy Bridgewater's a little bit mobile. I think he had like 4 or 5 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns last year.
Teddy's pretty safe.
Yeah, everybody use that term safe, but I mean, he is safe. But he looked very good in terms of running that offense.
Yeah, and I'm the Drew Lock guy.
Yeah.
I always have been. I just think Drew Lock is way more talented. I don't think Bridgewater is actually very good. I think he's a game manager. He's smart. He's cerebral as far as the quarterback play. As far as his physical capabilities, I do think he's lacking. And, you made the comment, with the type of team they have as far as being strong on defense and the other type of the way they've constructed their team, they want a guy that's not going to mess it up. But the way I see it is in that division, they're in the same division as the Chiefs. So they're seeing Mahomes. They're seeing the Chargers with Herbert. And who's the other? They're seeing the Raiders in Las Vegas.
Chargers and Raiders.
They're seeing these teams that can put up points. And for me, if you're going to compete with those teams, you need to also put up a high amount of points. And for me, that's Drew Lock for them. Like you said, there's nothing that's happened in the preseason or even this offseason that's kind of swayed me more on luck or Lock or less on Lock. I do think when it's all said and done, he's just going to show he's a superior talent. And if he doesn't show he's a superior talent, number one, that's totally disappointing with Locke, because he has the opportunity right in front of him. But number two, I'm not as high on all their skill players. So that's kind of how I see it.
All right. That was a quick one. I do want to go to our last topic of the night. We've talked about quarterbacks ad nauseum. We talked about running backs. I want to go back to tight ends for a second. Who's the best tight end not named Kels? And yes, I'm saying it on purpose.
That's the way you say it.
Yes, Kels.
Respect that man's name.
I honestly think he was joking.
Waller?
I think he was serious.
Or Kittle?
Out of those three, who's the best?
No, not named those three. Who's the best tight end in the league?
So who's like ranked 4?
Talent or situation?
Who's next on your board on tight ends? And Dayo, I want to go to you first because you are a tight end whisperer. So who are you taking?
Because talent-wise, I think it's Pitts.
Who you drafting number 4?
Who are you drafting number 4?
I'll take Pitts number. The way the board is going now.
No. Who you drafting in a vacuum? Who you drafting number 4? Who's going to produce? Who do you think is going to produce the most towards the end of the year?
Out of those two, I would take. I say those two, but Hawkinson.
Okay, so you think, okay.
Yeah, Hawkinson's my guy.
Okay.
Why?
I do think he's very talented, very, very talented. I think and George Kittle even said it himself, coming out of Iowa, Kittle said Hawkinson was better than him. They both went to the same college. They trained together. So Kittle had high praise for him. He's a guy that can stay on the field because he can also block very well. He has a size. Situation-wise, he is the number one option. I'm assuming this, but from the way things look right now, he's the number one, the main, maybe you can even say the only option in the passing game.
They're in trouble
for the Lions. And I think he can beat anything, as far as any kind of defense, whether he's double team, covered by a safety, covered by a linebacker. I think he can beat anybody. And then the type of quarterback he has, he doesn't have a quarterback that can really throw deep often or really just kind of gunsling. So he has the type of quarterback that's more so going to kind of find the medium range of the field type plays. So for me, Hawkinson is the 4th ranked in fantasy tight end. Talent-wise, though, I do think it's Pitts. Pitts to me is honestly a wide receiver in the tight end mode. But Pitts is not the number one option for the Falcons. It's going to be Calvin Ridley. So
maybe even Russell. I mean, maybe even Gage. But
Russell Gage.
Yeah. But number 4
so
tight end.
It's definitely not Hawkinson. I guess I'm gonna die on this hill. It's on tape. It's been on tape multiple times now, and I understand everybody's on.
Say this again.
I understand everybody's on Hockenson. I cannot get there. What I've seen from a standpoint of like him being like in the potentially Waller, Kelsey, Kittle breakout as a receiving tight end, I've just not seen it.
So who are you on?
I've not seen.
Question was, who are you on?
I just want to say why I'm not on that guy.
It wasn't bash Hockenson.
It's not bashing Hockenson, but I also think too that like we're going a little bit overboard with the Detroit Lions receiving corps. I understand they're not great. I understand that. They're not as bad as Saints. Saints got the worst
I think
receiving corps to
they
like.
can probably compete for that title.
Yeah, but Tyrell, don't be surprised if Tyrell has more targets. Okay, I wouldn't be shocked if Tyrell has more targets. Okay, I know Brashad Perriman has shown in the past, but I think that ship has sailed. Okay, unlikely. But I think the running backs, with the combination of Swift and Jamal Williams, see a significant amount of targets. And I do think Hockenson gets the targets, but I just think they're like, I don't think in terms of him like being a game changer or someone like you want to like build your offense around. I don't think he has that receiving skill set. Okay,
so
he's a great tight end.
So who are you on? This is like you're going long on Hockenson. I went on Hockenson.
Who are
your pick?
Number 4.
I mean, I would have to say Pitts, okay, where just because this is a situation
you think he's the number 4, like when the season's over, he's going to be 4th?
Not about where you're drafting him. Yeah, when the season is over, you think he's going to be...
I think it'll be Mark Andrews.
Okay.
I think we maybe see a resurgence from Mark Andrews. But, I mean, if I had to bet, I would put Pitts, okay? But if you ask me, like, my gut feeling, my heart... I'd probably say Mark Andrews, but I don't own a lot of these guys because it's just a lot
That's
of
not the question, though. The question was who was the 4th one after those 3
put
guys.
me on the spot and all.
Yeah.
So you're taking Mark Andrews at the end of the season. You believe that Mark Andrews' total receiving yards, touchdowns, fantasy
just
points,
fantasy points, just
fantasy points.
He's gonna be number 4,
especially in non-tight end premium. Tight end premium is where it gets tough.
Why does that change anything?
Because he's not a receptions guy. I think he's like a
premium.
He's a yardage touchdown.
That's
guy.
a point and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, that's
some
fair.
tight end premium leagues are 2 points for tight ends.
Yeah, but I think from a touchdown standpoint and from potentially a yardage standpoint, I think it'd definitely equal Hockenson from a yardage standpoint, but from a touchdown standpoint, he could easily double him from a touchdown standpoint. Easily double him. No one's saying that. No one's betting Detroit's going to be this elite offense. It's in the realm of possibility. Anything is. But
yeah, I'm really high on Hockenson. I think he's going to accomplish all of those things.
I'm alone in this one.
All right.
Solo.
Don't be surprised when my boy Jordan Akins from the Texans.
Oh man. No.
All right.
You gotta be
Don't be.
with that
All
one.
right. Listen, with Jordan Akins, surprised the world.
In terms of
Jordan Akins is not good at the sport
tight
of
ends that I
football,
like,
folks.
because you just brought that up. Tight ends that I like, and I've kind of been all over the board. So we were super high on Troutman, okay, like everybody else. Don't come at me. But it's only one preseason game, and I think we can't forget that he was hurt for a period of time. Okay, he was hurt and not practicing for a period of time. So, but I need to see something out of these next few preseason games. I was so disturbed by what I saw that I went back to go look at Jimmy Graham's second year preseason. Okay, and because I was thinking to myself, is Sean Payton just kind of one of those coaches that just doesn't want to show anything or like wants to keep things hidden? Because he kind of did that with Kamara to a standpoint. So I went back and looked at Jimmy Graham's season 2 preseason. Dude was getting targets and he was getting yak. Okay, so he was not just they didn't keep Jimmy Graham's under wrap. Okay, so I need to see that from Troutman, and they're also talking about was it Juwan Johnson or
Juwan Johnson?
Yeah, they're talking. They're talking about this tight. So I need to see. Just don't be as good a blocker. Okay, Troutman, just don't block as well. Okay, don't block as well, and then maybe you can run a little bit more receiving routes.
So you're telling me there's a dip in Troutman? People are lower on Troutman right now?
Oh, there's definitely a dip.
Oh, I need to get in some drafts. Then.
There's definitely a dip. So, but that is something that I do want to see. But in terms of like who I'm targeting now, Jonnu Smith. Just leaving it at that.
No. I think we need to end this show. If we're gonna end it with Jonnu. All right, guys, that's it for this week. This is episode 12? Episode 12, man. So we're moving through them. This is episode 12, 1st and 15. Please like, rate, subscribe, Right.
Yes, sir.
I be on the track for I ain't going back home. I be on the track for I ain't going back home. I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning, so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a fuck about your feelings, rub it in. This your ointment can't depend on the oinker. Find your pick in the blanket.